All right, hello there. Live long and prosper. All right, let's go through our Twitter feed, shall we? So I did this exercise of going through, I did this exercise with ChatGPT. So what I did was I was playing on the tennis court and this idea struck me that whilst you're playing tennis, your entire focus is on how your opponent responds to your moves, and your opponent's focus is on how you respond to their moves, right? So, and the next move that you play, you sort of generate, or you sort of creatively come up with some move that will, that matches up with the game of the other person. So you're sort of reacting constantly, reacting to the other person's personality in the game, right? So I came up with this idea that if you're always reacting, and when you're training yourself, let's say you're a tennis player or an athlete, you're training yourself in competitive sports in which you're going against another person. It's basically about gaming the game, like literally playing the game in a way so that the outcomes are in your favor, right? And that's completely dependent upon reacting to the other person. Like gaming means reacting to the other person so that things go in your favor. And so then I thought that training in that sense, let's say you're an athlete trying to become, like, you're trying to compete in one of these sports, it then basically becomes about sort of just training against quote unquote playing against the best players in the game. But how do you know that they're the best players in the game? Sure, there are all these competitions, the Wimbledon and so on and so forth, but can they write it down that we've surveyed the entire world, we've surveyed the entire 8+ billion people that exist in the world, and we're damn sure that these are the only few, Federer, Nadal, and whoever is there, Djokovic, and so on and so forth. Like, these are the only ones who are capable of playing tennis? Probably not, right? I mean, they'd be great players, no sort of denying that. But the entire thing revolves around publicity, right? And even in games, you're only playing against a specific player. So when you're trying to win against that person, there's no sort of creativity involved because you're constantly just reacting to that person. So I came up with this idea that, and I'll just start reading it because I don't really remember how it started. So I said, yeah. So I think and this is like ChatGPT paraphrasing me in order to make it sound much more, easier to listen to, easier on the ears and as well as on the eyes. Training kills creativity, whether in tennis or in any other field, because it conditions your mind to adapt to external constraints rather than explore new possibilities. Now, as soon as I read the word external, my mind immediately jumped to externalities in economics. So a lot of market forces are driven by externalities, things that previously weren't accounted for, and a lot of high frequency trading is basically, a lot of financial engineering is based on the fact that everything is probabilistic, meaning that you're just, and they use probability because they're trying to react to an uncertain situation, right? Instead of expanding your imagination, it forces you into a reactive state limited by your opponent's moves. A reactive state is like survival mode. You're responding to immediate threats or stimuli rather than creating something new. In survival mode, the brain prioritizes efficiency and predictability over exploration and innovation. So efficiency and predictability, right? Like high frequency trading firms, what do? They come up with these models, algorithmic models, which are sort of, rely on immediate data. Like, okay, this is how the market is responding. We'll come up with a strategy that sort of adjusts to this particular to these particular market conditions, right? So there's no, it's just you're constantly reacting to the game that the stock market is playing on you, right? In survival mode, the brain prioritizes efficiency and predictability over exploration and innovation. The same happens in training. Repetition and adaptation take precedence over free-flowing creativity, and I'll come up with examples that illustrate this, obviously high-frequency trading being one of them. The antithesis of a reactive state, or survival mode, is a generative state, one where you're not just responding to external forces, but actively creating new possibilities. Instead of reacting to circumstances, a generative mindset sets new directions, explores possibilities, and shapes the environment rather than being shaped by it. In other words, reactive state is one where you're adapting to external stimuli, survival, optimization, and adaptation. And a generative state is one where you're creating new pathways through exploration, innovation, and transformation. I really love that word. A reactive person navigates what already exists, high-frequency trading. A generative person introduces something that didn't exist before, like the iPhone. That was the example that I was going to come up with. Instead of merely adjusting to the world, they alter it. Now, that reminds me of this movie I'd seen called Blackberry with Jay Baruchel and I forgot the other people who were in it. But basically, the point was that, Jay Baruchel's character, Blackberry's, the guy who sort of came up with the idea of Blackberry, invents Blackberry, and then at the end of the movie, there's this thing where, the co-CEO of Blackberry, says, is on a call with the CEO of AT&T, if I remember it correctly, and he's sort of pleading with the co-CEO of AT&T to give them their business instead of to Apple. And then the AT&T CEO makes this statement, which was it was quite revelationary, to be honest, to me, in retrospect, basing it at the time that the movie is based on. He said, and I quote, that the problem with selling minutes, which was what Blackberry was doing, is that there's only 1 minute in a minute, meaning that Apple was going to give AT&T the kind of business that would sell things that were scalable, right? Like Apple was trying to get AT&T to sell data, right? So like the iPhone, what it did was it basically gave people access to data, large scale, not unlimited, but like a great amount of data that AT&T could capitalize on, and that's why they got the business. That's why Apple got the business from AT&T. That okay, you've got YouTube on your phone, or you've got internet on your phone. Now you can use as much data as you'd like, and AT&T was like, yeah, great, that you're going to sell for us, mate. So they basically altered the world, didn't they? They introduced a technology which was based on, to a certain extent, it did draw from prevailing sentiment, but it wasn't like a reactionary thing. Like Apple didn't just react to it, they responded. Like, look, okay, BlackBerry did this thing where they're giving everyone an email on their phone, right? And a BlackBerry Messenger type thing, which is exclusive to BlackBerries. With the iPhone, they expanded that. Oh, okay, instead of just email, we're going to give you the internet, the entire internet. So that's generative, like you're creating new stuff. So going on with the tweet, a reactive person navigates what already exists. A generative person introduces something that didn't exist before. Instead of merely adjusting to the world, they alter it. Now, most traditional career paths are reactive rather than generative. They train you to adapt to existing systems rather than creating new ones. From school to corporate jobs, the system conditions people to respond to external expectations. That would be deadlines, performance reviews, market trends. Second is optimize for stability and predictability, climbing the corporate ladder, job stability, so on and so forth. And third, to react to problems rather than invent new paradigms, right? Efficiency over exploration. Keep working at the current problem. I don't really care about, what your new mind comes up with. New things your mind comes up with. There was this thing that Mark Manson said in his, on the Diary of a CEO podcast, that when I think he was doing like his first job was with some kind of an investment bank or some bank, I don't remember. And he was tasked with, manually entering data into like an Excel spreadsheet. And he approached his manager saying, oh, okay, we can just automate this entire thing with a few lines of code. And the manager said, no, we don't want you to do that. Just keep doing what you do. And he went on and did it anyway. And he used the free time to start his side business. And so that's like a really good example of what I was talking about just now, about, reacting to problems rather than inventing new paradigms, right? So this is why entrepreneurs, artists, and innovators often take a different path. Instead of reacting to a pre-built structure, they build something new. They operate from a generative state. The system produces highly trained professionals, but very few true creators. And that sort of touches on my own sort of anxieties, like this thing that I'm doing right now. I don't know if it will be well perceived, and I think that's got a lot of role to play with it. Like you sort of just play on the prevailing sentiment rather than you absorb the prevailing sentiment. You internalize the prevailing sentiment to the extent that it paralyzes you. To build a life where you're generating rather than reacting, you need to shift from being driven by external stimuli, market trends, job demand, social expectations, to being guided by internal clarity and creative autonomy. That's what I'm hoping to do here. Here's how you can structure it. First, you define your generative core. What are the fundamental ideas, concepts, or pursuits you want to explore regardless of the trends? What questions excite you enough that you'd pursue them even if no one was watching? What is your unique intellectual or creative fingerprint? The second is build an environment that shields you from reaction traps. That's what I'm sort of trying to do here, through these tweets, for example. So you limit exposure to noise, which is like I'm tweeting more than I'm reading tweets and replying to them. I'm not reacting to tweets. I'm just, putting out my tweets more than I'm actually looking at others. So limit exposure to noise, to social media cycles, news churn, algorithmic feeds. Reduce dependence on external validation, likes, retweets, engagement metrics. So that's something I'm failing to do. I'm like, I'm constantly thinking, oh, is my next video going to get as many views, or is it going to be viewed favorably? Like there's an invisible audience in my head that is sort of already rejecting the things I'm thinking of doing, which is quite sad if you think about it. Create structures that force deep work rather than rapid response. So there's scheduled creative sprints or offline thinking time. This is sort of kind of a thing like that. Hopefully it works out. Third, generate before you consume. Start your day by writing, thinking, or creating before checking external inputs. I'm trying very hard to do all of those things. Don't let your thoughts be hijacked by the discourse of the day. Again, like that, it's hard. If you do consume, make it high quality, first principles material that expands your thinking rather than narrowing it. Yeah. I think hopefully what I'm doing right now, hopefully, sort of helps me do that. Turn output into a system. Have a daily or weekly practice of externalizing your ideas, writing, speaking, designing. Avoid perfectionism. God. Ship ideas even when they feel incomplete. So I don't know if I'll put this particular out on YouTube, but I'll try. Let creation be its own reward, not means to validation. View the world through a generative lens. Instead of reacting to problems, reframe them. What new things could exist here? That's a good one. What new things could exist here? I could probably use the chalkboard to my own sort of... I could experiment with my accent. I could do tons of other things. Mix things up a little bit. Move, like I've got like 6 feet of space to move in. Instead of engaging in debates, focus on producing artifacts such as essays, frameworks, models, content, inventions. Maybe I shouldn't focus too much on, maybe I'm sort of limiting myself by thinking that, just because I'm not putting out content that people will resonate with, that it will somehow sort of not be viewed favorably, but maybe I should not worry about that. Make uncertainty your fuel. A reactive mindset fears uncertainty and tries to optimize for stability. I think that's what I've been doing subtly, in a subtle manner. A generative mindset leverages uncertainty. It means there's room to create something new. Maybe I put this video out and it sort of inspires me to do something even better in the sense that I feel fulfilled by doing what I'm doing. Instead of asking what's next, ask what can I initiate? Maybe I'll push this video on YouTube, let's see. This isn't about avoiding all reactions, but making sure that your primary mode is creation, not adaptation. So what have we learned in this entire process? Oh, by the way, I think we have some more, let's go. I think we have 2 more tweets. At its core, the difference between so to sum it up, at its core, the difference between reactivity and generativity is a difference in ontological stance, a difference in how one relates to reality itself. Reaction is predicated on the existing, generation brings the new. Reactivity is fundamentally derivative. It assumes that reality is pre-given and that one's role is to navigate it as efficiently as possible. That's, I think, what I've been trying to do. High-frequency trading, for example, operates entirely within pre-existing market structures. It does not alter the nature of the game, only exploits momentary imbalances. Generativity, on the other hand, assumes that reality is malleable. That is something one can participate in shaping. Building the iframe didn't just fulfill an existing need, it created new ways of interacting with technology, which in turn reshaped human behavior. Reaction is closed loop, generation is open-ended, reactivity plays within defined parameters. It is optimization, not transformation. That's quite true, isn't it? Generativity refuses to be confined to what currently exists. It is exploration, not just exploitation. Wow, that's a good one. Like exploring, without feeling the need to constantly greedily seek to exploit. Just explore, like don't, like think of it like a multi-arm bandit problem, like what I'm doing right now. Instead of just trying to maximize the arm, the bandit arm, which sort of gives me the maximum reward, which I'm thinking is a reward. What if I just, pull the levers, pull the arms in a way that sort of lets me explore things? I mean, that might lead to something really good, won't it? Because I'll be exploring things. A reactive trader thinks, how do I make money in the system? A generative creator thinks, how do I change what money, trade, or value even mean? The time horizon, instantaneous versus timeless. Reactivity is short-termist. It exists in tight feedback loops. See a signal, act on it, and repeat. Generativity plays a long game. It requires patience because true creation often doesn't yield immediate results. The first iPhone didn't come from following a market trend. Wow, I think I've been following a trend as well. I've published these research translated podcasts, and I'm thinking I'm confined by that, and I just need to run the podcast over and over again. But I think I'm confining myself by doing that. I think I should stop doing that. It came from years of deliberate divergence from existing paradigms. I think also what's holding me back is sort of this thing where I'm constantly thinking, oh look, other people might be expecting me to just push out more research translated podcasts or something of that sort. But maybe that's not my strength. Maybe something else is. So let's see. Let's see how that works out. What was next? Wait, did I? Yeah. So generativity plays a long game, requires patience because true creation often doesn't yield immediate results. The first iPhone didn't come from following a market trend. It came from years of deliberate divergence from existing paradigms. I think I need to do that instead of following a fixed sort of line. Oh, look, I'm only going to do podcasts and stuff. I think I need to diverge from that paradigm and start doing something new. Response versus imposition. Reactivity is fundamentally about responding, waiting for something to happen first. It is downstream of external forces. That one, I don't even know what that means. I sort of, Generativity imposes itself onto reality. It forces new patterns into existence that weren't previously conceivable. The deepest philosophical divide here is one of agency. A reactive mindset treats the world as something to be adapted to. A generative mindset treats the world as something to be altered, molded, and expanded. At the most extreme end, reactivity is a kind of determinism, a belief that you are just an agent responding to external stimuli. At the most extreme end, generativity is free will actualized, an assertion that I can create something that never existed before and the world must now adapt to me. Yeah. Is there more? Is there any more? Most careers are structured to be reactive. The real challenge is designing a life that's constantly generative. Let's see if that works out.